Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new around here, I'm Katie.
I'm Ollie.
And this is our new addition to the family, which is April. So if you've watched any of our previous videos, you would know that obviously we was having a baby. She has now been born now, and as you can tell from the title of this video, this is going to be the labour and birth story. We didn't obviously record anything, but yeah, we just wanted to basically document the story of what happened, just more for the benefit of me. Like, I want to remember it, and I know that as time goes on I'll probably start to forget things, so I feel like if we record and keep it as like a little keepsake, and also April can then look back on it in years to come. She's just had a bottle, so she's hopefully going to sleep through, but yeah, we thought we would just record.
Yeah.
She's 7 weeks old now. So grab yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, an orange juice, a milkshake, whatever you fancy, whatever tickles your fancy, and yeah, let's
get ready for the story.
Get ready for the story.
Oh.
It's nice to drink a hot drink actually. So let's go back to the Sunday.
The Sunday, the
13th.
13th. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where it starts, isn't it? Would you say? A little bit, because we packed the bags, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
So the 13th, Sunday the 13th, we had a growth scan.
No. For the Monday, do you mean?
Yeah.
Right, okay, I got you.
If you let me finish,
Sorry.
guy, you're too eager you are. So we had a growth scan the following day. So on the Sunday, sorry as well, I've also got a bit of a cold, so my voice might go a little bit in and out, croakiness. So the Sunday, just a normal day, and it was 2 days before my due date, so I was due on the 15th of October.
Yeah.
So normal day, just potted around with our normal business, and then it got to the evening and we put on, what film?
Was it Deadpool and Wolverine? I think it was. So
we just started watching that, and then I said to Ollie, I don't think we should watch this film. I feel like we need to prepare tomorrow for the hospital tomorrow, because I've just got this feeling that like we're not going to be coming home without a baby. So I feel like something's going to happen in the growth scan, and they're going to say you need to be induced or something, i.e.
or we need to get this baby out.
Yeah, or something was going to happen, whether it was like the baby's too big, she's too small, she's not growing, you got high blood pressure, etc, etc. Something was going to happen. I just had this feeling. So we made sure all our bags were packed. We put them by the door ready to take in the morning. We got the car seat ready. We just got everything ready, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we had showers and then just went to bed, didn't we?
Yeah.
As normal. And then we got up and drove to the hospital for the growth scan as normal.
Yeah.
Little bit of backstory if you haven't watched any of the previous videos. I was having growth scans every 4 weeks, after 32 weeks, wasn't it?
It was after 20.
Was it?
Yeah. So we had like a 28.
28 it was.
I think it
started.
was the first one. Yeah, 28 weeks. Yeah.
So I was having regular growth scans because I was classed as high risk, just because of my mum's history of blood clotting disorder, preeclampsia, because I'm previously a smoker, and because of my BMI. So a few different factors, so they classed me as high risk. So we was having 4-week growth scans. And so when you go to a growth scan in our local area, you obviously check in at reception, you go and have your scan, and they just basically like a normal scan. Like your ultrasound. Yeah, check the stomach, check the baby's head size, stomach size, and length of the legs, is it? Length of something. Yeah. And that basically gives an estimate of the size of the baby. Yeah. It's not obviously like a guarantee, it's just an estimate. And then they also check the blood flow to the baby from the placenta, and then they also check the fluid around the baby. So a few things they check, and then they give you like a piece of paper with all that information on, and then you go and see a midwife, and then she checks like your blood pressure, your urine, checks everything's okay, has a little chat with you, and then you go and see a consultant, and he reads through the paperwork, checks everything okay, see if there's anything that they need to do, like to adjust it really, don't they?
Yeah.
So that's how it normally goes around our area anyway, that is. So yeah, we went to the growth scan, had the scan.
Everything was fine, everything was good.
Absolutely fine. They said she was £7.
£7.
15? 13? £7.
£7.12, I think it was.
Something like that. So yeah, growing perfectly healthy. Everything was looking really good. So then we went to see the midwife. She checked my urine. Everything was fine. And then she checked my blood pressure.
Yeah.
And that's where it started to get a little bit wrong. So she checked my blood pressure and it was 170.
What?
170 something over something else. Can't remember exact, but I just remember it being 170. So then I started to panic because the last few times that I'd been to see the midwife, my blood pressure had been high, but then they'd do it again in a few minutes and it would go back down. So I think it was just like anxiety. A little bit of a backstory about that. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but basically a few weeks leading up to like, when I was like 30 plus weeks pregnant, I saw on social media a lady that lives local to us that sadly lost her little baby at the same hospital that we were having care under, and it was kind of related to blood pressure and preeclampsia, and it was just an awful story. But I heard that towards like later in my pregnancy, and that kind of gave me like really bad anxiety about it, because every time I was going to the midwife I kept getting like high readings of blood pressure, so that was just kind of in the back of my mind always.
And then every time you just started crying, didn't you?
Yeah, every time my blood pressure had a reading and it was high, it just made me panic. So that's kind of a little bit of the reason why we lead on to what we're going to lead on to. Makes sense in a minute. So yeah, I'm not going to go too much into her story because that's obviously her story to tell, not mine. But that was just always in the back of my mind, wasn't it? So yeah, she did my blood pressure and it was 170 something over something else. And she said, oh, it's a bit high. And I started like to get upset, and I said, yeah, it keeps going high. This is what kind of happened. And she said, well, okay, we'll give it a few minutes and we'll do it again. So we were kind of just chatting away, wasn't we?
Yeah. Trying to calm you down a bit.
Kind of calm down. And then she did it again, and she said it had gone higher, didn't she? So she said, don't worry, what's probably going to happen is you're going to see your consultant and you'll probably just have to go to triage and be monitored. So that's kind of what she said. So then we went to see the consultant. This is a consultant that we've seen previously, so we kind of had a relationship with him, didn't we? Like a bond.
Yeah, he knew about our whole pregnancy.
Yeah, about the backstory kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, we went to see him and he said about everything else was looking absolutely fine. Baby was growing healthy, especially because she was due in the next day. So
yeah,
he was saying like she's growing perfectly. He said, but because of my blood pressure, they wanted to send me to triage, monitor my blood pressure. If it goes down, brilliant, they'll send me home. If it doesn't go down, then they'll put me on blood pressure medication, and then obviously it should go down and they'll still send me home. And kind of at that point, because of my anxiety, because of the high blood pressure, because of this previous woman's story that I've had, and because it was her due date tomorrow and she was already growing fine, I kind of just said, I don't want to leave this hospital without a baby, because I don't want to go home, my blood pressure to go really high, and I don't know that it's gone high, and then risk of like preeclampsia and something bad happened to her. I said, she's healthy, can we not just start induction and, you know, get her out? And the consultant was really good and said like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. The success rate for inductions like past your due date is really successful. So words. But he said, we'll deal with the blood pressure first and then we'll get you induced. So that was the first part, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So after that, we go off to triage, don't we?
Run.
Take a little stroll up to triage.
Yeah.
And so I'll just take a sip of my drink. Also, April's fast asleep because she's just so used to me chatting absolute
Bullshit.
So we go to triage, and they do my blood pressure, and it's come down a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it got down to about 146, I think it was.
Yeah, which is still slightly high, but you know, no 170s. So they just kind of put her on the monitor and everything. She was fine. Did a few like other checks, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they just basically said, we're gonna do your blood pressure every couple of hours, make sure you're alright, and hopefully it'll come down. So me and Ollie are obviously just chatting away. I feel absolutely fine as well, but like I'd had no signs of like labour or anything, had I? And then a few hours later they checked blood pressure again, it's still in the 140s.
Yeah.
So they're saying they're gonna find us a bed.
Then they said they were going to do a sweep, didn't they?
Yeah, they
when
said.
We was in triage.
Yeah, so they said we're finding you a bed, just waiting for a bed to come available on the ward, and then but while we're waiting, we'll do a stretch and sweep. So we went into another room, didn't they? More private room, and they did a stretch and sweep, and she said that I was 1 centimetre at that point. Again, my blood pressure was still in the 140s plus. So we kind of was just chilling around there, wasn't we?
Yeah.
Had some lunch, because at this point it was like lunchtime, midday, wasn't it? 1 o'clock. And then we move over onto the ward. And again, we're just kind of chilling there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Just watching like Netflix, kind of trying to just keep me like relaxed and calm, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then every so many hours they would come in, do my blood pressure, and yeah, it was still high though, so I think I was getting more annoyed, wasn't I, that it wasn't coming down, because I'm so used to it being high.
For a couple of minutes.
And then going back down and like carrying on with life, I suppose.
It was the fact that it was like...
Just wasn't coming down, was it?
Even when it was coming down, it wasn't coming down to what it should be.
What they were happy with.
Yeah.
So, then was that. And then, I don't know, did they give me the medication before we went onto the induction ward, or...?
No, it was when we was on the ward.
So then...
Oh, no, it was when we was on that first ward.
The first ward where we was at after lunch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so then it obviously didn't come down. It had been so many hours at this point. And they basically just said, we're going to give you some blood pressure medication to help bring your blood pressure down. So they gave me that. And then, again, kind of just waiting around. Kind of like what you do in hospitals, I suppose, weren't it? And then we finally got moved over to the induction ward, which was about, it was after...
It was before the changeover.
Before the changeover.
Yeah, so it was about, I'd say it was about 7 o'clock.
About 7.
Evening.
In the evening, yeah. So we then went on to the induction ward. So we were chilling on that for a bit, waiting for the medication to do its thing, and then they did my blood pressure again, and it had finally come down to like 120 something. They were happy with it. So then they said, okay, we're just going to put April on the monitor and make sure she's all happy, and then we can start induction. So they put her on the monitor, and she wasn't
Bear
happy.
in mind, this was about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night. She just decided to have a party.
Yeah, so her obviously they'd put me on a monitor previously, and they could tell that her heart rate was in like the 130s over whatever, something.
Yeah.
But this time they put her on the monitor and she was in the 160s, and she was just bobbing along at 160, wasn't she?
There was an occasional drop to 140, but like it was majority of it was there about 160, but they said like it has to hit criteria. Yeah,
so it normally takes about 20 minutes to hit criteria if your baby's heart rate is at what it's meant to be. But because April was at 160 constantly, and then she dropped to 140, she wasn't meeting criteria. So she was on the monitor for about 2 hours in total, but every time the midwife came in and would check her over, it's suddenly gone really dark, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to put another light on. Slight change in lighting because it's obviously December weather. So, yeah, she was on the monitor for about 2 hours in total. But you could kind of tell, like, the midwife kept coming in and checking the monitor and like checking the squiggly lines on the piece of paper or whatever it's called. And you could kind of tell she just wasn't happy with it. She wasn't like saying anything, but you could kind of just tell like with the way she was being. Like she was an amazing midwife as well.
Yeah, she was really good.
And she was just like, you could tell she wasn't happy with it. And then I said like, is everything okay? And she just said, oh, she's not meeting criteria, but like it's not awful. Like we're not in a panic mode yet. And then got to about 2 hours of being on this monitor, which was annoying because obviously like being pregnant, you want to get up and go to the toilet, but you're attached to all these wires. So yeah, we got to about 2 hours and she said, oh, I'm gonna get the doctor in to have a look at your chart just to see what he thinks. So the doctor came in and he just said that we're gonna move you over to the labour and delivery suite, and we're gonna
put you on a monitor there
and see if we can break your waters if you're far enough dilated to break your waters. If you are brilliant, then that's obviously gonna induce labour naturally. If we can't, we're probably gonna need to give you a C-section because we need to get her out basically. But they wanted to break my waters to see what colour the waters were, to see if like April was in distress inside me and that's why her heart rate wasn't coming down. So we went over to the labour ward. It was a lovely room, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
beautiful.
Great.
Had you an ensuite, a lovely bed, nice recliner for you. It was lovely. So we were just there. Put her back onto the monitor when obviously we got over there, and she was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Wasn't she?
Normal. 120, 130.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but
we said we reckon she didn't like that ward.
Yeah, maybe she just didn't like the room.
Because there were 6 other women on there.
5.
Sorry, yeah, so 6 in total.
Yeah. No, maybe it was just a bit too noisy for her. Maybe she was just, I don't know what was happening, but she calmed down then. She was absolutely fine. So they was like, okay, we'll still see how far dilated you are and see if we can break your waters. But I was like, at this point, still 1 to 1.5 centimetres dilated. So they said that they can start induction now because she'd met criteria, they were all happy, my blood pressure was down, April was chilling in there now, so we're all ready to go. So they inserted a pessary, obviously into my vagina, and then...
That wouldn't be right, would it?
Imagine, that would hurt, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, and then they leave you for 6 hours to do its thing.
Because they might need to insert a second one.
Yeah, so how it works with induction, I don't know if this is everywhere, but here in the UK, in our local area, they insert one pessary. Don't ask me what it's called because I don't know. And then 6 hours later, they check you. If you've still not progressed, they insert another pessary for another 6 hours, and then they check you again. If you still haven't progressed, then they insert a final pessary, which is for 12 hours, and then if still nothing's happened, then they move on to like the hormone drip, etc, etc. So, inserted the pessary. They also put me on a fluid drip because they wanted to make sure I stayed hydrated. And then we went back to the previous ward we'd already been on with all the other 5 people, and you kind of just have like curtains, like to have your privacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this was at about 1 AM at this point.
That was inserted at 1 AM.
Yeah, and this was 1 AM on Tuesday the 15th of October. So we kind of got some shut eye, didn't we? You fell asleep. You went to sleep on the floor.
Yeah, because it was more comfy than the chair.
Yeah, and I was in and out of sleep because I was having the drips in me, so I was constantly up and down going to the toilet. And it was just, you can't really sleep because you hear people snoring, don't you? And people like obviously are in labour, so there's a lot of like noises. So yeah, there was that, and then it got to about what time?
It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
And
you started.
I started.
No.
I started getting like cramps at this point, a bit like period cramps. They were like uncomfortable, but nothing too bad. And then the midwife came in, obviously did my blood pressure again, put her on the monitor, make sure she was alright. And she said like she could see that I was having contractions on the monitor, but they weren't very like intense.
Said they were mild ones.
Yeah, and I thought I don't feel that mild. And then it was getting to the point where my waters broke then, didn't they? Well, I thought they'd gone.
No, it was about 8. That was, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, it was about 8 o'clock.
I think you skipped that a bit. It was about 7.
All right.
Because we was on the labour ward at 7:30, weren't we?
No, that was about 9ish.
Okay, timings are a bit.
Well,
Anyway, so my waters went what I thought they went.
So
I wasn't sure because I wasn't sure. Obviously, I've never had my waters go before, so I wasn't sure if I was if I'd weed myself or if my waters had broke, because it wasn't like a gush like everyone says. It wasn't like a pop. It kind of just felt like I'd weed myself. So I said that to the lady, the midwife, and I said, "Oh, I'm not sure if my waters have gone." And she said, "Well, I'm going to examine you now anyway, because it was 7 o'clock." Did you say 7?
Yeah.
It was 7 o'clock because it was 6 hours after the pessary. So she's checked me at 7, and she said, "Your waters have gone because I can feel the baby's hair." No shit.
Yeah.
And also I was 2 centimetres, so I was progressing. So she said, and the contractions were ramping up. So she said, "We're not going to insert another pessary because we don't want to give you too much and then I don't know what happens." So she said, "We'll just leave you as it is, but we're going to move you to the labour and delivery ward again because your waters have gone, so you need to start your antibiotics and stuff now." Because I'd got strep B.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for a bed to come free on the labour ward, they'd started to ramp up, hadn't they, to the point where I couldn't talk during them, could I? I was like breathing through them.
Yeah.
Holding Ollie's hand. I didn't want him to leave me at this point because I was like, okay, they do start to feel quite painful. And then
it was the walk from there to the labour ward.
Yeah,
it was only a 2-minute walk, but it just
something happened, didn't it?
You just went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, from being like still okay, breathing through them, just holding Ollie's hand, to the walk to the labour ward. I was then leant over the bed, wasn't I, in pain, and I was like, this is painful. So then obviously they swapped midwives then at that point. I had a different midwife who was also again lovely.
And then she said the first 4 centimetres are the worst.
Yeah. And then she said, "Do you want some gas and air?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll have that crap. That sounds good." And then, so that was like, he's helped with the pain, didn't it?
Yeah.
And she said, like, "What kind of route do you want to go down? Like, how do you want this to go?" And I just said, "I want pain relief. I'd like the epidural." And I said, "Is there any like recommendations of when I should have it? Should I wait until I'm like further along?" Because obviously I made 2 centimetres. She was like, "No, you can have it now if you want." And she said that the anaesthetists were doing the rounds, so they could be in within the next few minutes. So we were like, "Oh, fantastic!" We were like, "We'll have the epidural. Ollie can go and get the rest of the bags out of the car, and then we'll probably put a TV show on and kind of just
chill out
and like work through it." Because obviously by the time the epidurals got into my legs and like numbed me from waist down, I'll be like having no pain, so I'll be feeling fantastic.
Yeah.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
So anyway, they come in. The anaesthetists introduced themselves. There was 2 anaesthetists and 1 doctor, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
then obviously the midwife. And they get you into position on the bed, don't you? So you're like dangling your legs over the bed. You've got like a cushion across my stomach where I'm leaning over so that
your neck was like
completely down, wasn't it?
Pillow.
In the pillow, yeah. And then you can't move at all because obviously they've got a needle in your back. I don't actually know how an epidural works or what they have to do. I just know that it's like a needle into
the spine.
Your back, yeah. So Ollie's on gas and air duty because obviously I can't move my neck. So he's bringing the gas and air to my face so I can take the gas and air. And then every time I would feel a contraction, I had to like say I'm having a contraction. So the anaesthetists would stop what they were doing. Because obviously just in case I did move. So yeah, they numbed my back, which was no pain at all, and then at that I couldn't feel anything at that point. It was kind of just like pressure I would feel. It wouldn't be
more awkward because of the position it was in.
Yeah, and with the contractions. So yeah, they was kind of messing around for a while, and time was going on, weren't it?
Yeah.
So this was, what time was this? At about 9:30 they was doing this.
So they started at 9:30.
And then they finished at 10:30. So they
took them an hour.
They said that you only get 5 attempts with putting the epidural in because of how many times they're like piercing a hole into your back, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the anaesthetist, both the two anaesthetists tried twice, and then for the final 5th time they called in another anaesthetist from theatre, and she came, and luckily she did do it, but they were just struggling to find like a gap in my spine.
So they said like, this will be your last attempt. If we can't get this one, you will have to have stronger painkillers.
Yeah, it would just be like painkillers through like a drip or something.
Yeah.
So I was panicking a little bit because I was like, I did want the epidural. That's kind of like how I thought, this is how I'm going to get through labour. So yeah, she luckily finally did it, got it in.
She put you on the low doses to start with, because they didn't want to go on the higher one because of
how many attempts that they had. So they was like, it was like a practice dose. So they start you on the practice dose, make sure everything's okay, and then they come back in about half an hour and up the dose for you. Just because of how many times they'd obviously been into my back, they wanted to make sure that they hadn't accidentally hit something, which obviously can happen. They don't know what my back looks like, so
no.
That's not on them at all. No. That's happened. I've heard since telling the story to people, more people seem to have had a similar issue. So I don't blame them at all that it happened. I think it was just something that happened. They tried their best. They were so lovely. The whole
Every
time.
single one of them at that hospital were absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, like I kept saying to them, like, is there an issue? Am I doing something wrong? Am I moving? Like, what's the issue? And they was like, no, we just, like, I think it was like, they said something like my spine was deep in my back, wasn't it? So they were struggling to get that little gap in between my spine and the muscles and the fluid and stuff to put it in. Anyway, so they got it in.
Moving on.
They finally got it in, started me on the lower dose. So then we got onto the, like, lay on the bed, and then the midwife said,
I'm going to leave it up half an hour.
Yeah.
Because they've just done that.
Yeah.
Before we check how far along you are.
See how far dilated you are. So at this point it was 10:30. She was going to check me at 11.
Yeah.
So we were kind of just chilling, weren't we? With the gas and air, getting through the thingy. But that's another thing is, with the epidural, obviously when you agree to have the epidural, they give you they gave Ollie an iPad with all these terms and conditions and bloody
side
warnings
effects,
and side effects and all this.
What could happen?
What might happen. So she was like, you need to read this, you need to sign it to make sure that if anything happened, they're not obviously like going to get sued.
Liable, yeah.
Yeah, so I said, I can't read this, Ollie, you're going to have to read it to me. So you were reading it to me, but the words on there, I mean, there was all these medical words.
And then in the end, Katie just goes, I don't give a fuck, just sign it.
Yeah, literally, because it's really like to give it you when you're in labour and you're having contractions, you obviously can't focus. It's
like you should have these things when you're pregnant, so you can read through these.
Yeah, it should be like, if it's something that you consider, well, just everyone, you should be given it and you should read it and you should sign it to say, like, worst case scenario, if you have to have an epidural, you obviously have consented to it and you've read all the terms and conditions and all the side effects and everything. That's how they should do it, not when you're in labour having contractions every few minutes, because it's just not realistic. Anyway, so moving on from that, it got to 11 o'clock. And she examined me, and I was
5 centimetres.
5 centimetres, and she inserted the catheter, because obviously with the epidural you're like almost paralysed from the waist down, obviously temporarily. So yeah, she did that, and then we again just Chatted.
With her, even, like, just having a laugh with her.
Yeah, with the midwife, she was just, like, putting her notes in and stuff, just with the gas and air. Everything was kind of, like, it was alright, wasn't it? It was pretty calm, wasn't it? And then it got to 11:30, and I just had this really weird feeling and this urge, like my body was just like pushing, and I just thought that she'd obviously inserted the catheter. I thought maybe she'd inserted it wrong and my body was like trying to reject it or something. I don't know what I was thinking. Obviously I've never been in labour before, so I didn't know what to expect. So I kind of just said to her, I've just something's not right. I feel like I'm pushing, and she kind of just was like.
She looked at us and she was looked at you, thinking, "I told you half an hour ago, you 5 centimetres. No way."
Yeah, she was almost a bit like, I think you're a bit doolally, love kind of thing. She obviously didn't say that, but she was kind of giving me the look, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And then she examined me at 11:30, and she said,
she goes, "You can have this baby by 12 if you want."
And I was like, we were like, what?
And then you were there like really confused, and then you just turned around and goes, "I'm not ready."
Yeah, literally, because I think because it was so quick, I hadn't mentally prepared myself that the baby was obviously coming that soon. So yeah, it was 11:30, and she said, like, because my body was pushing itself, like pushing her out.
Okay, so you can have it within the next hour anyway, whether you push or not. Yeah,
because it was just, obviously my body was naturally pushing. So again, it was still quite calm, I would say, because in the movies, and what I expected is that when we were...
In the movies?
In the
series.
When you're having a baby, I just assumed that she would, when you're 10 centimetres and ready to push a baby out, she'd push a button or something and loads of people would come in and it would be like this...
It's not American.
Like, scene. But it was just her, and she was so relaxed about it. Like, because I was pushing, like, naturally, she was kind of like just chilling, weren't she?
Yeah.
And she was like,
she was there like, "I'm not going to put my gloves on yet."
And then she said, "I'm just going to fill out my notes first, and then I'll put my gloves on, and then we'll actively start pushing." She's like, "But, you know, your body's doing its thing anyway, so just leave it to it." Kind of thing, weren't she?
Yeah.
And then so she then put her gloves on, and we started actively pushing at that point, didn't we?
Yeah.
So again on the gas and air.
And then we was, like you say, we was really confused because there was literally one midwife.
Yeah, one midwife.
And then right at the very end, another midwife came in.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, you're having a baby. I might as well stay then."
Yeah.
See the baby born, and
the
anaesthetist came in to obviously up the dose, and the midwife was like, "We're having a baby in here," and he was like, "Okay, honey, bye." So yeah, we was just pushing, obviously her out. Well, I was. You weren't pushing. And by 12:14, April was born.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a whirlwind, wasn't it, of how quick. So I think when she came out and obviously was put onto my chest, I was just like still in shock, I think, because of...
Yeah, we couldn't believe how you go from 5 centimetres at 11 o'clock to an hour and 14 minutes later, she'd born.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and because of how quick that happened, the epidural didn't work. So I had complete feeling in my legs, complete feeling in obviously my...
Well, was it an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes after she was born? You was in the shower?
I don't know.
It was an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
She was in the shower.
Yeah, so then normally they say obviously after the epidural, I think it's like 6 hours or something, or until like you've got obviously like movement back in your legs. But because I had constant movement in my legs throughout, I just basically jumped in the shower after she was born. But yeah, so after all that effort of the epidural, and then it didn't actually work, I didn't get the benefits of the epidural. But yeah, she was born, and then...
She was £8.3.
£8.3, so they weren't that far off with the scanning, the growth scans, so that was quite accurate, I would say. Yeah. You obviously have to take it with like a pinch of salt. But yeah, that was it. There was a few questions. I asked a few questions over on our Instagram, which if you're not following, do go ahead and follow. It is, I'll put it on the screen. So the questions were...
Bear in mind, I haven't sent these questions either.
Was it the birth you planned?
Well, no, but yes.
Wasn't the birth that we planned?
Because we never planned any birth. Because we didn't want that whole thing of everyone's making these birth plans. If you don't make a birth plan, you can't be disappointed if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So Katie said from the very beginning when she found out she was pregnant, everyone kept asking her, "You doing a birth plan?" And when they're like, "No, because I don't want to make a birth plan." And then because of all other issues she had from her mum, she couldn't do it. Like, ideally, she wanted a water birth.
Yeah.
That was...
And then there was the midwife-led centre, wasn't
yeah,
it?
the Bluebell.
But obviously you can't have like any like medication over there.
Yeah.
And stuff, like you couldn't have the epidural. So there was just like a few factors that were already taken away from me. But we just decided that we didn't want to make a birth plan because I've never done it before, so I didn't know how good my pain threshold would be. We didn't know what was going to go down, so we just kind of went in with like such an open mind so that we couldn't be disappointed with anything. But at the same token is, when I look back on it, it was that it went so well. It was the best way and the best outcome possible, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like it all just went perfectly. Like even with the epidural and it not working and that issue, again, it's still like it still went so perfectly, I think.
But it also shows how good your pain is.
Well, you say that this time, but it might not be next time.
No, I know that,
But yeah, so it was a really good experience.
yeah.
I couldn't fault it at all. Like even like the induction, like when people say like about like being induced, obviously I've been watching videos and some people are in there like 4 or 5 days, and that's kind of like what we did expect to happen. Like I expected to be in there like at least 3 days, didn't we? Like you'd rang your work and told them. So for it to happen so fast as well, like we're so lucky that it did happen that quick. Number 2 is, would you change anything? I think I just answered that actually.
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't change anything. It was perfect to us. And it was just like stress free, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really calm.
The only like stressful thing was
The epidural trying to... It was because obviously there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
To make it better.
Yeah. I think it was probably harder on you watching me go through that than it was on me, because I couldn't feel anything. Obviously the contractions and stuff, but I had the gas and air for that. But it was more horrible probably for Ollie watching them stab me in the back with a needle. And
You're used to people stabbing in your back though, ain't
you? Ooh, really? But yeah, so it was interesting.
Yeah.
How did Ollie cope throughout your labour?
You can answer that.
I think he was really good. Like, so supportive, and like I'm a bit of a hothead, if you don't know. So like I'm the kind of person that loses my temper quite easily, don't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do. So kind of like there was a running joke in my family that I was going to be screaming at Ollie, telling him I hate him, all these things during labour, but I wasn't. I was really calm, really loving, if anything. Like I only want, and like I've heard people say that they don't want their partners anywhere near them. They don't want them to touch them. Like it's like overstimulated kind of thing. But I felt like really close to Ollie in labour, and I felt like he was so supportive. I didn't want him to leave me. I only wanted to hold his hand. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we were like really close, weren't we, in that moment? Was you gonna think of a joke then about holding your hand, holding your cock or something?
Huh?
He was looking at me like you were thinking that. So yeah, it was just really nice, and he was so like amazing. Like
yeah, it was.
It was the best thing, and Ollie was the best person ever. And then
I'm sorry she said that.
how was the recovery?
I wouldn't say it was as bad
as you thought it would
as
be.
you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know really.
I think it was alright, to be fair. I think, like, obviously I had like a natural birth. I did have stitches.
Oh, she farted on me.
Because I had one tear and one graze, so I did have stitches. And I think it was the worry after giving birth of how painful it was going to be, like going for a wee, obviously going for a number 2. Like that was my fear, that it was going to be painful. But both of them were absolutely fine. Like there was no pain. And even like having stitches, like I was worried about them. But again, like
it's the shower as well, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, showering. I felt like really weak for a few days and like off balance. But I think that's expected. Like I've been carrying around all this weight for so long, and then it's just kind of gone, isn't it?
And I can't believe how quickly
the belly just goes.
The belly just goes.
Yeah, going
back
from,
to how it was.
When we look back on the photo, because you took a photo of me in bed, didn't you, on the day before? How swollen I was. Like my face was swollen, my hands were swollen.
I took a photo when you was on the monitor.
Yeah, like my wrist was, like my whole body was just so much water, and it kind of just disappears, don't it? Yeah. But yeah. It was, the recovery I think wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, obviously I was up on my feet pretty much straight away, but I was weak, like, I think just like tiredness. So yeah. Have we covered everything?
I think that's everything really.
Yeah. If you've got any questions, do leave them below and I'll answer them. Don't forget to follow us over on Instagram because we do post a lot of things on there.
And TikTok.
And TikTok, yeah, I'll put my TikTok on, our TikTok on. So yeah, we post more things on there about like what we get up to, because obviously I'm on maternity leave now. We put lots of things on about April, just so, yeah. So this is April. Welcome to the family.
Fast asleep.
Fast asleep. She's done really well. She's making out that she's a really good baby, isn't she?
Yeah.
But she's a little...
As soon as we turn this camera off, she's going to go wild.
Yeah, and scream. She's got a little baby as well that I need to get in a minute.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's the birth story of little baby April, our first baby. We've got a few more videos coming out with picking our Christmas tree, which we've already done, but I wanted to get this video out first. But yeah. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye guys.